This is the story of the First Unitarian Church in Dallas. It's not an ordinary story. It's a story about how history lives today. It's a story about a church of action, not reaction, hospitality and collaboration. It's a story about a church that saves lives and asks its people to go deeper. These are the faces of our people. This is our history. In 1899, Mr. Daniel Limbaugh of Trenton, Mississippi, Dallas's first pastor, spoke to a gathering of Dallasites at the invitation of the rabbi of Temple Emmanuel. Among them were the people who would together create the First Unitarian Church. He said,
"The time has come in the history of Dallas when a broad and liberal Christianity should be declared here. Many souls are hungering and thirsting for religious knowledge, truth, and righteousness. To them, the old dogmas, doctrines, and creeds appear outgrown. These persons are at sea without a chart or compass, and many are making shipwrecks of their religious natures."
If we were going to say what this means for today, it would be this.
Many people in our midst are, in fact, hungry and thirsty for a progressive religious community that saves them from wandering aimlessly in a consumer culture of the American religious landscape. They are coming to us looking for a community of mind and soul that does not shrink back from God or the Bible or other sources of inspiration. What they get is not a thin spiritual meal at the religious banquet here. What they get is a chance to encounter a deeper sense of themselves, their relations to their community, and to God.
The chart and the compass that we provide is for people who are still lost at sea in materialism, in religious literalism, in the fragmentation of our time. We like to teach them what the old contemplatives would call skillful means, the skills of civic dialogue, the skill of contemplation and meditation, and learning wisdom words which will carry them through the dark times.
If you want to know one thing about First Unitarian Church, it's about deepening. We ask our members, what is God doing in your life? What moral conduct guides your actions? What challenges you about who you are and what you believe? And will you look into it more deeply to be inspired and changed? As a church of nearly 1,000 members, we're a progressive oasis in Dallas. This oasis is about drinking deeply from the well of spirit and meaning, but it is no resting place for those who wish to be simply affirmed for who they are. We ask for more.
When you come to the worship service on Sundays, you are challenged in the pulpit, and you do get inspiration from the music. But I think one of the things that this church does in its community involvement from the pulpit, in the music, but just in the gathering of people that come together on Sunday morning, it reminds you that the choices that you make day to day to either be engaged or to try to escape the challenges that we live with, that's not a private decision, that we're all in it together.
We studied this year how Jesus mostly taught.
And one of the things that I wanted for my son was that we find a place where he would be exposed and be taught respect for a broad variety of ideas, but that he would also learn to think critically about stories that he would learn, and why do we tell these stories and what might they mean. And I wanted him to learn to recognize moral authority that wasn't based on fear or idolatrous literalism. He needed an answer for the cultural values and the religious values that he was going to come into contact with growing up.
I think that we serve a very important role as a liberal religious presence in North Texas. Texas lives up to its stereotypes a lot of times about its conservative views and its predictable way of responding to spiritual and human needs. And I think our church does a wonderful job building a platform to talk about those needs and talk about social issues in an inclusive way rather than a restrictive, isolated way.
Outreach is very important to me in a community sense that is separate than the career job that I do every day. It's far-reaching, it's powerful, but I particularly like that our outreach doesn't tie the recipients to having our belief system. And that's very important to me in the free world of giving service.
This church, after 50 years, is in the marrow of my bones. So it's hard for me to describe the things that have seeped in. Some of the major ones, of course, are learning about the wider world and joining with other church members to do things that required lobbying in Austin and stepping out, stepping up to the plate. When I was raised as a Southern girl, we were not encouraged to step up to the plate. And so with the help of these of church members here, I was able to do that at important times.
Our members are asked to commit seriously with generosity and with the goal of deepening their religious lives with study, spiritual practice, and working for justice. The people of this church have been and remain a progressive voice in our city and nation. During the Depression, the Women's Alliance kept us strong and viable by making sensible financial decisions and meeting through tough economic times. Reverend Robert Rabel, who was minister of our church for 20 years, was instrumental in the desegregation of our schools in the 1950s. In 1969, the Women's Auxiliary was studying the issues of abortion. The Unitarian women organized an independent group to address reform of the abortion laws in Texas. Their collaboration led to the Supreme Court decision in the now famous Roe v. Wade case. Today, our members are active in working on issues of democracy, clean air, and area industrial foundations, interfaith advocacy for vigor in public education, healthcare, and immigrant rights. But more than anything, we thrive because we break through to the hearts and minds of people who want to belong to a place that will ask them to go deeper with a community of acceptance and freedom that believes that we must all take to heart how we will do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God. First Unitarian Church of Dallas lives out of a history that has stood firmly against the wind of intolerance and even hate to make room for a progressive religious space that waves the flag of hope and increases love.
We need a liberal platform which does no violence to religion, but which, while perfectly rational, is at the same time expressive of the highest conception of a life of spirituality.